6:02.
Hold on. Say it again.
All set?
I think so.
There we go, testing. Be at 6:02, I'd like to call the order the Economic Development Subcommittee for July 23rd, 2026. We're not, as I learned last time, we don't need to go through all this rigmarole. I'm not going through all that rigmarole. At least that's what Jamie said. So I'm
Correct.
going to listen.
You don't need the rigmarole.
Here we go. So, number one. So tonight, we're here to talk about new growth, and we thank both Kevin from the Assessor's Office and the assessors themselves, the board, for being here tonight. We always defer to Jamie, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this, Jamie? Right to them.
Dishing the rock right to the assessors.
Right to the assessors.
I'm going to do other work.
So first of all, I want to thank Kevin. I did send you some questions ahead of time for getting us some information, and I want to appreciate you pulling that stuff together. It certainly will either answered questions or generated more questions for me, but that's why you're here tonight. So I guess I'll turn it over to you to see if you can just give us a kind of a starting point, and we'll fire away after that. How's that sound?
It sounds fine. I think that, thank you for inviting me, giving me an opportunity, and the board, and I would like to introduce two members of the staff, Renee Chen and Rachel Cliff. They're appraisers department. Dave Roberti could not come because he had a previous family obligation, but they're here to support. And for the benefit of the public, I think it's fruitful. I know the information was published on the one page, but if you'd like, I could read this into the record.
That's fine. That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I thought so. So new growth is identified and quantified in the same manner throughout the Commonwealth. The attributed valuation is determined, followed by a computation against the previous year's tax rate for the classification that it falls in. For personal property, that value is for new items in existing accounts, and for total value for those accounts that are new, entirely new. For real estate, it's in several categories. Formerly exempt property coming onto the tax roll, the increase in value of land due to changes from unbuildable to buildable, possible zoning changes, an increase in construction, or qualifying changes or divisions actually increase due to a division of land or parcel into two or more parcels, so-called lot splits or subdivisions, new taxable construction or qualifying changes to existing structures. All possibilities are only as allowed by the Commissioner of Revenue. Guidelines are very strict. New growth is a byproduct of our ongoing requirement to continuous review, gather, and refine the real estate property data for the databases in order to have reliable data on file on which to establish fair and equitable, full and fair cash values. Here, as in the majority of Massachusetts communities, personal property is reviewed, gathered, and valued by a contracted specialized consultant. The assessment date for this category, personal property, is January 1st, prior to the start of the fiscal year. So as of January 1st, 2026, for example, sets the determinations for the fiscal year that began July 1st, 2026. The legal classification, examples, sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, and designated manufacturer, local or statewide utilities, determines in part what is taxable. There are provisions in the state law that in some cases treated these differently. For Franklin, the vendor has been RRC, who's involved in probably at least 1/3 of Massachusetts personal property accounts, and they've been with us since fiscal 2003. For real estate, the review, gathering, and valuation is done in-house. While the assessment date for the category is the same, January 1st, due to Franklin's adoption of Chapter 653 of the Acts of 1989, all physical changes are reflected annually as of June 30th, as if they were in place January 1st. This hasn't been challenged, it's been in place since 1989 for communities as they adopted it. Most communities have. That's as of the day before the beginning of the fiscal year. The appraisal staff is responsible for maintenance, updates, and new growth in the context of the annual established valuation schedules. New growth begins with the increase in the value attributed to a property's changes, not the market from one year to another, but the changes in the same context as the value that you're using as a basis. The DOR has decided some exceptions. Insulation, roofing, siding, replacement windows, and replacing a component of the same type and size, such as a wood deck. Those are not allowable under the provisions of new growth. Usually, building permits are posted every workday in our office. Upon application to the Catalyst, which is an old named Patriot Properties database, by the staff. Early on, we determined that in order to assure none are missed, we must use the consistent initial application date, not the varying issue date. So the application, the initial applications put into OpenGov, and then it goes through a series of reviews before it's officially issued a permit by the building department. There may be, because the payment has to be, made and clear, and they have to check with the treasurer collector to make sure that taxes are in order, all of that. So that could take a few days, or it could take a week or a few weeks. Staff input also assures us that a reliable identification and description for assessing purposes is in place. All permit applications up to June 30th are worked by the appraisal staff every fiscal year, while the building department has one meeting for the term open versus closed permits. For assessing, open means we haven't completed our review yet, while closed means that we have completed our review. And that's in our applications. The open versus closed permits is a function of the building commissioner and the building inspectors. However, we frequently also will flag permitted or unpermitted properties for further inspection, either for the new year or for the next fiscal year, subsequent fiscal year, as we come across them, depending what's appropriate. Forecasting is virtually impossible since there are great plus or minus variations in a stated value between what may appear to be similar improvements, as well as between the stated construction cost and the value added to the market value of the property. We must reflect the market contribution to value, and that's as we've determined through all our analysis year to year what that particular item is going to contribute to the value. Whether it's less than the stated amount, in some cases, this is just an example, say $100,000 renovation, it may not contribute. It may be something that the property owner wants to do for their own benefit, but it may not contribute that amount of value to the actual potential resale price. Or it may be greater than a stated value of $600,000 for a permit to build a new home, which may turn out to be worth even more or maybe less. While the lion's share of real estate is assigned a market-adjusted cost value, this is mechanics of valuation, so-called cost approach to value. It's actually a market-adjusted cost. Apartments of 4 or more units in commercial industrial development is valued using the income approach to value. That's real estate income, okay, as an investment property, with a correlated backup on the cost approach. But in the case of the latter properties, having incomplete construction as of June 30th, the cost approach is used until completion, because in order to increment the value according to their completed components. So if they 50% done, we can apply 50%. But if you're running an income approach, you're talking about a property that's 100% complete. So we opt during the time period while it's under construction, year to year, to use the market-adjusted cost because we can make an adjustment. I'll note that, so a new growth in the case of the income-producing properties that are complete is determined through the contribution to the value, the part that's going to be affected by the income approach. And that usually means more area, and it can in some cases mean a change in the area or the uses. But for example, if they add a little bit more pavement, or they add a couple more lights, or they add a loading dock here or there, that's not going to be enough to change the market value of that commercial industrial property, at least not initially. And so that's not allowable new growth because it's not contributing to the value. And that's what I have for now.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for that, Kevin. Again, the reason why, I just wanted to set it again for those tuning in, the reason why we're having this discussion is obviously new growth is a very important calculation in setting the tax rate. In that, that is money that is above, that is what allows us to get above 2.5% every year. So the levy is based upon the prior year, and any new growth is kind of a cherry on top. And we all know that that there is a gap between the taxes that we bring in and the expenses that we have. We had to use a little free cash this year to get us to balance. Last year, there were cuts made. So one of the ways to mitigate that is obviously through new growth. And you have to balance new growth to what the town can do, and I understand that completely. And that's ultimately why we're here tonight, is to kind of talk about how that new growth is kind of calculated, talk a little bit, in my mind, about kind of what's on the horizon. You kind of referenced that a little, Kevin, about how you value those. But ultimately, that's why we're here tonight, and we appreciate you all coming to talk about that tonight. But because personally, this is obviously one of the ways to help potentially I'm going to say get us out of fiscal, we'll never be out of fiscal crisis, but one of the ways to help mitigate the need for the dreaded O word or cuts or something like that. So, so that's the reason why we're having this discussion about new growth tonight. With that being said, I'm gonna see if Councilor Malloy has some questions that he would like to fire off first.
Could you, I don't know, kind of where you want to go?
So anywhere you want to go.
Okay.
This is your time.
Timing-wise. Kevin, thanks for this. Thanks for publishing it earlier. I guess in addition to what Mike said in terms of understanding how new growth contributes to future revenues by increasing the tax levy, I think not only the mechanical process of how it works, but I'm also interested in the timing and speed with which new growth is calculated and assessed. So maybe just a simple example, like I understand larger construction projects are going to take some time and the valuation is going to change based on whether it's owner-occupied single family or, you know, a larger apartment complex. But let's take the simple example of home renovations and how they work. Can you give us a sense, high-level timeline, based on what you just said here in terms of when you become aware of a project and the time it takes to kind of assess that, close it out, and add that value back into new growth? For example, my house, I asked to pull a permit last week. I don't know when I'll get it. They said 2 or 3 weeks, but I just want to renovate my bathroom. Not a huge amount of work, but at one point or another, I'll be assessed, and I'll pay a penalty. I'll have the honor of paying a little bit more tax to the town because of that renovation. But can you just give us some sense of what that time frame typically is?
Okay, so for both, okay, let's see, as of last June 30th, 2025, we had a snapshot of all physical changes throughout the town. I mean, they're not all gonna be there, but everything we could possibly be aware of through either permits of flagged properties or just having gone to properties for other reasons through the abatement process or through verifying sales. So it's permits issued after that or properties for which changes occurred after June 30th, 2025, up to what's taken place physically up to June 30th of 2026 that we would work, that are being worked in this fiscal year. And it's as of, so right now we have a little bit of rollback. We have to make sure that if we haven't been there yet, that we make a determination as to what was the status of, was it complete as of June 30th, 2026, or was the project or renovation, whatever, still pending or in part pending.
So if you say complete by June 30th, 2026, you could have gotten a permit or somebody would have opened a permit on that sometime before that.
Say-
within that 12-month period.
Right,
it would be a
anytime,
permit.
yeah, right. Usually, for the most part, although we may start collecting data, you know, that's gonna be relevant to fiscal 28, but for the most part, we get through this tax rate setting, January, it's the abatement process, and then the collection of data for the for the real estate portion of the permits and the growth for the next year begins. Personal property, the vendor comes out usually may start as early as January, and they usually in earnest out here in Franklin in February. So we earlier on, they've started the process because they need to get close to January 1st for their as-of date. In terms of real estate, it varies. We're working on timelines. We're working also in areas, concentrating certain geographic areas. And again, there's permits that might have carried over from the prior year, and there's permits that are issued beginning in the summer and fall.
So if you're just, so I kind of understand it, are you looking for statements with information from the building department to say that this construction has been finished and the permit's closed out? Is that a trigger for you to assess?
That's,
Do you wait for that?
okay, so we're using many sources. We're using, yes, we would like to have as much information and as timely information as possible available in the open gov logs of for the building department. We're also, we work very closely with the building department. They come over and ask us questions. We go over and ask them questions. We have a very good relationship there. We use on-site. That's part of it. And then we're also able to supplement, sometimes just as an advance preparation, information that we can determine through NearMap, which are aerial photos that are flown, and we have a subscription to them, and they're flown at least 3 times a year. So we have snapshots of what's going on the properties throughout town as of that date. So to the extent that there might be things that are reflected on the outside of the property in terms of additions or appendages of various sorts, or detached yard items, swimming pools, garages, sheds, we get a preliminary sense of how they're progressing. It varies so much with property owners, particularly, well, even if they're going to have a contract, it can vary a lot. From starting right away and getting it done quick to often homeowners doing it on a part-time basis, some part of it that's allowed under the law, and it can be taking months to complete the work, whether it's exterior or interior. That's helpful as a start.
I mean, I kind of get it. I guess I was looking for something a little more definitive in terms of the process of what happens. Everything you said kind of makes sense. And I'm sure there's hundreds of small jobs and several large jobs. So you want to obviously split your time to where it's most cost effective. But just in my mind, trying to frame out generally how long it would take from you becoming aware of a new growth opportunity, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 project in a home. How long before you're aware of it and the completion of the work does it get added into new growth? I'm just trying to get a sense of that.
Right.
Under the theory that the sooner we can realize it as new growth, the better for all of us in terms of future revenue.
Right. Well, ultimately, we've covered everything, but we're aware of it within, days or a day, because it's been posted in the OpenGov system. And the staff keys in there, and as I mentioned, we found it beneficial to actually put it in and not explore any kind of electronic path from their software to ours because it wouldn't bring over what we need to know about it. Historically, before we had this, we were lacking the detail. We'd get a permit for renovating a half bath at the Franklin Village Mall, and it'd be like a lot of work and calling the contractor, trying to find out where it is. And sometimes they didn't even really know, at least in terms of the information we needed, like what suite it was. They kind of knew where it was, and they just would go there. So anyway, that got squared away because of the work that's been done over the years on the mat. Great deal of it attributed to Kate's work as the GIS director. We've got every location identified. And so we were aware of it, but again, we're going to be capturing all of this information as of June 30th. Now, it could be issued in August, and we could find it in place, in August or in September or October. And right now, we've been working on how. We appreciate the support you gave for an admin. A lot of our appraisal work has been a little bit irregular. We're trying to smooth that out because they've had to spend a great deal of time with administrative work. Like this time of year,
Right.
the folks are filing for exemptions, and we literally have hundreds of applications for that. Most of those turn out to be successful because they know the guidelines, but there's a need to work with them so that a lot of that's going to shift over time once we have an admin in place.
So Kevin, I'm going to pick up where Councilman Malloy is going.
Okay.
So if a building permit is placed today, what I'm hearing from you is you have a completely different system at that point. If I open a building permit, you take that building permit and put it in your system to track it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and so now you're tracking it as, we'll say, an open project.
Right.
What is the trigger to let you know that that project is completed, that the building permit is closed, or you're just continuing to monitor that in a different way? How do you know, to his point, that he pulled a building permit for a renovation for a bathroom, $20,000 is what it says in the building permit. You put it in your system. How do you know, it's ready to be assessed? Like, what's the trigger to tell you it's ready to be assessed?
So, from experience, the staff allows a certain amount of time.
Okay, so you're looking at, if it's 6 months, that's still in an open status?
Probably, yeah.
We'll go check it.
Like say 3 months or whatever
Okay.
before you, because oftentimes, like even the June permits, we're posting them, we continue right into, we continue throughout, because you might be going out on now, like for a permit in April, but they pull another one in July. We want to make sure that, the July one, that's not going to pertain to this year. We'll collect the data,
Correct.
but we'll save it for the next year.
So, as you said, you're looking, let's say it's 3 months, it's in an open position, it's 3 months. What are you doing to confirm that what are you doing at that 3 month? Are you checking with the building commission to see if it's been closed? How are you determining at that 3 month interval, it's time to be assessed?
Historically, we would send notices to a group of properties
Okay.
that have sort of ripened, or we think that there's a pretty good chance that they're.
And you send it
And
to the homeowner?
So a group, right, a large number of them, and then we'll begin the collection process. And we may have other things to do at the property. It may be such that we're ready for a verification of the exterior measurements.
Yeah.
And do also in the cyclical program to do an interior. If we find, oftentimes because of their experience, they know, and we found that the work is done. But if we find that it's not, then we get a sense of when the property owner thinks that they will have finished the work. And, we'll plan that, or we'll ask them to give us a call if possible. But if we don't hear, we'll make another attempt.
And I can certainly attest to that because that happened to me, and we'll talk about that when it's my time. One other question that may be picking up on your thing, which is, so currently today, you could, out of your system, give us a report of all the open, non-assessed projects that are out there right now. Is that, I would hope you'd be able to produce that says, these were the projects I put in January of 2026 that have not been assessed. These are the Februarys that haven't been assessed. Is that, I would assume that should be a very easy thing to get out of the system.
We could run a report of open permits.
Yeah, open, whatever.
Because
the steps.
once we've got all the data that we need to collect, then we would close it.
Correct. And part of that closing is putting an assessed value on that renovation or new.
Right. Well, we will have captured all the descriptive data, and we will have also determined the increment of the value, the valuation increment that's attributable allowed under the category new growth. And also made any other changes that may not be growth that are in order.
Thanks, Mike. Do you track that at all now in terms of any kind of metrics or timeline or whatever? I guess where I'm trying to go through is what's the current state right now in general for start to finish process? And as you mentioned, the admin, will we see an increase in speed of completion of these things? Something we can check 6 months or a year or 18 months to say it's made a difference or that there's more efficiency. Or, I don't say efficiency is a bad word, just to kind of track to see if the speed of the process is.
Oh, sorry, was that a question or?
Well, maybe ask it this way. Do you track any metrics right now? Do you track completion times, new permits to close outs?
No, we're just trying to work as fast as we can, right at this point in time.
You don't track that?
Not in
Maybe that's
particular.
something we should think about going forward, just in terms of a simple system to do that is useful to you, useful to all of us, just so we kind of know how it
We're working towards getting these types of things in place.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure.
Just like I had a conversation with Marina, and previously talked to Kate about the potential of the OpenGov system carrying more data, being more of a database for planning, conservation, and ZBA, and that's a possibility. They're exploring how to implement that sort of stuff, because those are also things that I watch. First of all, I need to know things that are finalized in terms of the planning process, especially plans. Because sometimes plans are approved by the planning board, but they're not, and that's allowable. That contributes to growth. But they're not necessarily yet recorded at the Registry of Deeds or the land court. So I need to be able to look at those things. It also gives me a sense of if that plan is going to be approved for what's going on with the land. And of course, this could be a specific project also, not only reconfiguration of the land, but also specific improved types of improvements, apartments or whatever. Then I need to keep that on my radar, basically. And so they're very much interested in getting that into that base, because we have a link also in our Access GIS system on a parcel basis to the list of the various permits on any given property. So those would join all of the others, the various sundry things.
I guess it would be good to know as a takeaway at some point to kind of give us a summary or an update of pending permits, as Mike said, maybe by month or this past year, the number of open permits that are still pending.
Well,
So quickly, I think I think this is a combo effort between the building commissioner and Kevin. I think they could probably get, and Kate, we could certainly ask them to get some different data sets of what's open. If there's other data that we think that might be helpful, we can certainly get that. I don't think that's too much of a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure the information's there, and just if we look at it differently a little bit and say, generally, how long does it take? Is there something we do to speed that up? Is there different triggers that should be, kind of universally applied or whatever? Just to have a look at that system. That'd be good. I'm good. Mike, thank you.
Okay. Awesome, Morrongiello.
Thank you very much. Thank you both, Kevin, assessors, and our chair of the Board of Assessors. Thank you for coming. I had a note, new growth. I had it removed, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's a joke. I guess it didn't go over very well. I'm sorry. So my first question is regarding, you have two different formulas that you use for commercial property. You have the based off the rental aspects of it, the rental income versus sort of the fair market. What's the other one you referred to as?
market adjusted cost
Okay.
approach and income approach.
Income approach. And so, in general, if you swap them in and out, is it pretty much the same, going to come up with the same results, or is there some variation between them?
They correlated states as minimum within 10% of each other, but we're generally within 5% plus or minus
Okay.
on those numbers.
And is
And the income we feel makes the most sense. Going back 25 years ago, it was more common for the cities and towns to use just the cost approach. Well, they would have an income generated, income approach value generated, but they didn't select it as the final approach to value, but it's more relevant for those types of properties.
And in terms of within that 5%, is it like 5% plus or minus, or is it 5% plus or 5% minus?
Plus or minus.
Okay, so they end up equaling about the same on average compared to the 200.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so it's not like we're undervaluing or using one method versus the other.
No.
Okay. My other question was regards to, is there some, just understanding how assessing works, is there like a formula or handbook or a manual that, anyone could go through the same manual or same handbook and come up with the same results? Or is there more of an art to assessing?
Well, if they had 40 or 50 years of experience,
Yes.
might be able to. It's, you don't know what to do, and just picking up the manual. There's a lot more to it.
So there's a manual,
you
but
can buy on
can't.
Amazon, Kevin?
All right.
No, is there?
There's Course 101, Assessment Administration
Yeah.
on the Department of Revenue.
Right, I did, actually did point that out to Steve, the availability of the 101. That gives you a lot of the nuts and bolts.
Great winter read thing.
Right.
Great.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
assessors also have to go through a mandatory class when they're elected, correct?
That's the one, that's the minimum.
Chris,
Yes.
Cheryl, Dan, right?
Yes.
So,
101, yeah.
But like everything else, every other profession, there are nuances to it.
But it's not like you could, say, to someone, oh, this is my work. These are my calculations. If someone else wants to replicate it, you can't do that, correct?
Each community is different.
Yeah.
So I'm the assessor in Westwood. Our property values are much higher. Our table calculations are different than Franklin. So one size does not fit all.
Okay. But even within the same apartment, there's no standard metric? It's all sort of a little subjective.
We're all subject to the same standards that the Department of Revenue wants, but each market, each town, each community's standards and table adjustments for that specific market will differ.
Okay. So if someone wanted to like understand their assessment, is there something you could show them to say, okay, this is how we came up with your assessment?
A property record card,
Okay.
which has the attributable items associated with that specific parcel. And, also ask the staff, Kevin and his very skilled staff, and if someone thinks that that the Franklin assessment is wrong, there's the abatement process. And then there's a real deep dive. We're doing mass appraisal for how many, 17,000 parcels approximately?
Well, about 12.
12, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I just know the population or the parcel count, because I'm not on the staff. I'm not on the staff. I'm on the board, but I'm not on the staff. But you're not doing a fee-based appraisal on all 12,000 parcels. We're using mass appraisal practices.
So is the mass appraisal practice take the information that's in the card and come up with a number based on that information?
Yes, and table adjustments are done each year to reflect what's going on in it. So those are interim adjustments.
Okay. So there is a bunch of math going on between what's in the card and what the final, and that's something that can be, I guess my question is it something that can be traceable or reproduced if someone wants to look at that data and say, they give you the same information, the same card will come up with the same results?
In all honesty, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say, what I try to tell people is, we want the data to be correct. If we're showing that you have 5 bedrooms and you have 3, let us know. We want that to be correct. If the attributes are wrong, they should be corrected. And at the end of the day, we're trying to come up with what that property, what the final number is, should reflect the market value. So if someone thinks that's wrong too, we want to know and want to have a deeper dive. And the goal is to get it right.
And I'm not saying that you're providing it, that's not what I'm saying. No, I'm trying to understand the process and just trying to understand, how the system works. So that's where I'm coming from.
If you took 2 identical properties in the same neighborhood, with the same attributes, you'd come up with the same tax bill.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask a question. Does the sale price of the property and the date it's sold have an effect?
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it shows how the market is looking at that property at that time.
If it's an arm's length sale, and we're always looking at arrears, so, for the upcoming fiscal year, fiscal 2027, it's how the property is assessed as of January 1st, 2026, which means for residential properties, we're looking at sales that occurred in calendar 2025. But those are the properties that have sales, so your commercial endeavors don't have the sales. That's why the income approach to what Kevin was saying is a more appropriate form of arriving to a value and a market value.
So I guess the other questions I had are regarding personal property. Can you just explain what is personal property? Give me some examples, and sort of, because most of new growth is actually personal property. It's not actually new building. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Well, a great deal of it is, we've had years where it was 50-50. Well, as I said before, personal property is either new items or a new account, but it's not necessarily every item. For example, if you're a corporation, your furniture and fixtures and your inventory are not subject to taxation. But the machinery and equipment used in the conduct of business is locally taxable. They may have some exposure at the state level otherwise, but we're looking at what's eligible locally. Sole proprietor, virtually everything is, or partnership, everything is subject to an assigned value and a tax.
So like if you have a machine that makes cappuccinos, Is that machine personal property?
Probably.
Okay. So anything that makes stuff, so if a corporation has furniture, that doesn't count. So whatever things would a business have, that would be personal property.
Like if you're a construction company,
Yes.
if you had an excavator, that would be considered
Yeah,
personal property.
yeah, non-registered vehicle.
If you're a dentist office, your machinery that you use, the chairs, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, and I was wondering if you had any information. I know we talked a little bit about doing more to audit personal property because we haven't done that in the past. Do you have any? I know you said you were looking at a contractor. Do you have any updates regarding that?
I do have some information relative to that. It seems as though it's we have the process that we have. We're also looking for uniformity. When we do valuations, and that's true in personal property as well as in real estate. We've got to be consistent. There has to be a reason why one is more than the other. The audit process is like zeroing in on particular accounts. Sometimes there are other accounts that are likely to be similar. It's just another avenue to look at those individual accounts, business accounts.
So are you saying that you feel that auditing accounts wouldn't be fair because it has to be arbitrary in how you select the accounts?
There's a concern that it's possible that why is this one being audited and there's a few others like it, similar, and maybe they're not being audited. So there's a selection process that would have to take place.
So, I mean, there are non-arbitrary selection processes. The IRS does it all the time. You have like, you can do the first, the 100 biggest accounts. You can do it randomly. You can see if something flags something. There are policies that can be put in place.
Yeah.
Or no?
So we have had a cycle for personal property that's a minimum of every 5 years looking at the accounts. And this year, for in preparation for 27, they completed 100% review. Now, they didn't necessarily get into every single one, but mostly they do because they're working during the week. Businesses are open. But that in conjunction with a very good response in terms of forms of list, which is a request for them to make an honest declaration of their assets. Those are worked in conjunction with one another. So the on-site, the appraisers got in and seen what's there, and then they have a report from the taxpayer as to how they view what they have, the items in terms of offering, the age, what they originally paid for it, maybe their opinion of value, which doesn't necessarily mean that that's accurate. We have our own consistent, the vendor has its own consistent tables for depreciation, loss of value attributed to age and or condition.
So it's not just a self-report. There's also auditors that are going into your assessor, that are going into these businesses and
Yes.
actually seeing the property.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
documenting that. So
Right.
it's not pure self-report.
Right.
That's one
No.
of my false impressions. So thank you for clarifying that.
And because they're working with these, whatever the category is, widgets, group of widgets,
Yes.
they're seeing it all the time. They're familiar and they're going from one community to another, so they're getting, they're gaining knowledge constantly about the kinds of things that are used in each type of business, as well as the value of those items.
And you said this is a 5-year review cycle?
Yeah,
Okay. So what percentage of the businesses are evaluated every 5 years?
oh, at least 20%, but we had a high concentration in this past year to make sure that we had a thorough review before the revaluation.
And so this is 20% over 5 years, or each individual?
No, every year it gets at least.
So that you're getting to 100% at the end of the 5-year.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So in your opinion, do you feel that we are accurately assessing the total, do you feel that we are accurately capturing the amount of personal property in terms of new growth, or is there something that we're missing?
I think we're accurately capturing.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have, not to do an advertisement, but the vendor has a very good reputation. The CFO, he began back in the 80s or early 1980s with the Department of Revenue, and he was in utility appraisal, which was highly detailed and technical. And then he was like the key person to start this this effort that's gone all these years since the late 1980s they were formed. It's just an aside, I guess, but.
All right, I think that's all I have, although it's outside the scope of this hearing, but when it comes to the council, I will be asking about the senior tax exemption again and those other exemptions. We're talking about the business. We're going to be talking about the split tax rate, but I'm also going to, still want to know about that other senior tax exemption. So if you either have information now or information at that meeting, that would be helpful, because there was another one that I think we still haven't checked the box off for. There was last November, I believe there was one, we were supposed to vote yes or no on a senior tax exemption, and we didn't have any information about it because we thought we approved them all. So some clarification about that would be helpful.
Was it
The senior means
See,
tested
see,
exemption, we don't have that as an option.
Yeah, it's pending in the Municipal Empowerment Act. Still hasn't passed
Senior means.
legislation. so
Then why do we vote on it if it hasn't passed yet?
Either, I think there's definitely a provision in the Municipal Empowerment Act to update the senior means exemption, and that's been filed by the governor for 4 years. So we should lobby Rep. Roy. Actually, the council has written a letter in support of this before, so that's something I know that's pending, and I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know what the holdup is on Beacon Hill on this particular one, because this would benefit a lot of people, but
We'll get you the information that you're asking for.
Thank you. And with that, I'll yield.
Alrighty. So, I got a
Motion
whole
to
bunch.
adjourn.
What? This is right up my alley. So, just to add some color to some of the information that Kevin had shared ahead of time. So, I asked Kevin to forward along kind of the new growth numbers for the last 3 fiscal years, 24, 25, and 26. And again, this is just, as Kevin did, read it into the record. On average, over the last 3 years, we've added about $88 million in new growth each year. About a third of that growth has come from the residential side. And of that third that's on the residential side, you wouldn't be surprised, about 3/4 of it is renovation and 1/4 of it is new homes. With the remaining 2/3, it's on the commercial residential side. Most of it is new. And to your point, Council Morrongiello, it is heavily weighted towards personal property. So with that, with regards to personal property, the question I actually have is, Kevin, if I own a warehouse and I have 5 tenants in it, are the 5 tenants theoretically gonna be individually getting a personal property tax bill, or is the landowner that gets the property tax bill?
No, it's for the business.
is the
Yeah,
business.
each one.
Okay.
Right.
So in theory, if I owned a building at 110 Constitution Ave and there were 5 tenants, I should see in the personal property list, 5 110 Constitution Ave in that list, correct?
Theoretically, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Do we, back to Councilor Morrongiello, how do you reconcile that fact? How do you know what the inventory is to know that you've captured everything? Because to that point, I have looked at the files you sent to me, and there appears to be gaps in it where I know there's more than one person in that, one more business in there, but I've
Right,
only
but-
seen one in the personal property. This is not new growth, but it goes back to how do you capture, if a new tenant moves in, that new tenant in that process?
Well, again, it's as of January 1st, and they are all collected, but sometimes what they have is the same from one year to another. They haven't made any changes.
I
So
guess I'm
you're
looking
only
for, like,
seeing
the
the
new
ones that have
tenant.
growth.
I guess I'm looking for the new tenant, because
Yeah.
to me, that becomes
Yeah.
new growth.
Yeah.
The old
No.
tenant left,
So-
so Councilor Morrongiello left,
Right.
I came in.
Yeah.
I am now new growth. I'm not,
Right.
we may do the same exact thing, but my asset is now a new growth asset.
Yeah.
In theory, and actually, correct me if I'm wrong, if I actually bought his equipment and now using it, is that considered new growth? It's the
Actually,
same piece of equipment, but we're two different companies.
in this case, a new owner, yeah, it becomes a new account, and it's growth.
Okay, so
Right.
that transfer of the business, even though it's the same exact, in fact, we had it last night, we had a bunch of transfers of liquors. All of that new business is gonna be new growth, even though it's the
Yeah.
same exact fixtures as it was in there before.
Right. So, the same type of business probably renamed or have a new owner. They could even keep the same name, but if there's a new owner, if we assess the owner, then it's probably a new account. Again, the status could affect new growth.
Okay.
So Kevin, in general, if last night they approved the liquor license for Village Mall Liquors, it's going to become Giorgio's Liquors. How much new growth is in that, and why is that new growth?
Okay.
Same stock, same inventory, same purpose, same shelves, same contractual property, same intellectual property. Why is that new growth, and
Because-
how much do you really get out of it?
Yeah. It's new growth because the DOR says it's new growth.
Okay, well,
Allows
but
it.
I just
Yeah.
expectation management.
Yeah.
Like, is it because of the sale price?
No.
Is it? It's just physically a different owner. So
Yeah.
how much money is, once you go out and reappraise that parcel, or if Cheryl did it in Westwood, how much more money does that look like conceptually on new growth? Is that $5? 15,000?
Oh, well, it would be the whole account would,
Well, I know the account changes behind the scenes, but just, I'm trying to bring it back up to 30,000 feet at the forest level for anyone listening at home. Like, what really in reality happens? So now, next week, the purchase and sale closes, and say in 2 months, Giorgio's Liquor sign goes up on the sign, right?
Yeah.
Now it's new. Walk the committee through how your office deals with that.
Can I just ask, are we talking
Well,
about
first-
personal property transferring accounts or real estate?
It's personal
Personal
property.
property.
Okay, so because the real estate, that doesn't apply.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's just personal property.
right. Well, it's, first of all, our vendor is also bringing in knowledge. They're tracking this information. But we also are tracking every month. We're reviewing all of the DBAs that are put on file
Yeah.
that are either, we're watching for additions, new DBAs. We're checking renewals, make sure the account is still intact in our system. And we're watching for deletions. And then when we get a deletion, as the vendor does as well, but we're doing it also, we're checking each other. We expect if one goes out, someone else might be coming in. So we're tracking the space. And that's basically it. Where we gear up through forms of list on the existing accounts, and also anything that we feel is new, that we don't just feel it, we know it's out there, or at least it was formed, intended to be out there. And those are all going out on or about the 1st of January. The request for declarations from the personal property, the business owners. The vendor is also tracking for the city or town they're working for, and they're using their tools on their end to say, they're anticipating. They work all the streets that have businesses. They work them all. They're looking to see what they have, and space that might have been vacant the previous January 1st. They're looking to see what's there now. There's got to be a tenant by now, and if there isn't, so noted.
I think the answer that you were bringing up, Jamie, it's in my opinion, it's quite simple. You say, if it had a value of $15,000 before with the old owner, it's going to come over as, just keep it simple, it's coming over at $15,000 value with the new owner. The difference is, last year it was in the tax levy. This year it's a win because it's actually considered new growth. So now it came out of the tax levy. It's kind of a thing, but it's mechanically, it technically has an ability to add more to the 2.5 than in the first place. And that's kind of where I was going with the question in the first place was, and especially with regard to transfer.
I think we need to verify that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's correct.
it's potentially true, so if
Right.
it depends, if it's the business name stays the same and it's just under new management, it's going to be the same account and the details on the account will be different. But say Panera Bread closes down and Wonder, this new chain, opens up. Panera is going to cease to exist. Wonder is going to have a new account, so long as they were there prior to January 1st. So it depends on what time, what day they moved in, and then it will be a new account. So it really does depend.
I'm assuming it's an arm's length transaction. I'm not assuming it's I'm selling to my brother kind of transaction.
Well, if
I'm
someone
talking
sells
about
the
a borrower.
business, the name of the business stays the same. So if someone sells the
So-
business, then that business is going to stay the same in a personal account. It's just that the owner will change. And so it does not become new growth in that instance.
Right. That's correct.
So
If it's an arm's length transaction, it's not considered new growth?
in personal property, if you sell the business
Yeah.
to somebody else and it's an open market, but you're selling the business and the inventory, all the inventory and the equipment, et cetera, is in kind, it's still going to be the same account, the, DBA, this business name, and now your ownership difference is different. It doesn't necessarily equate to a new personal account being
That's different
opened.
than what he just said.
I think
Yeah.
it just is a depend situation. It really is. And we do rely, I use the same vendor. They're wonderful. They're extremely knowledgeable. It's a very niche operation, personal property taxation, which is why most communities in Massachusetts rely so heavily upon them. I ask them those types of questions all the time. George's Pizza just sold, they're under new ownership. It's still George's Pizza. How do I handle this? And it usually depends.
So for example, Mike,
Yeah.
if I buy your entity, okay, in the underlying, like S corp or whatever,
Right.
in that case, it wouldn't be new growth, because the company is still the same company.
And you're
Whoever-
taxing the company.
If I buy the assets of your business and then I open up under a new name, then that would be new growth. Do you see the difference?
Do you understand? Once a
Yes.
person,
I-
once
It's-
a
That's what I thought.
I understand, but
actually-
that's a lot different than what was said 5 minutes
I
ago.
know. Yeah.
That's a big difference.
That's why I said we need to verify.
Right.
Okay.
Step forward, if you will.
No, yes.
Steve Sherlock, 13 Magnolia Drive, Community Information, back to Franklin Islands, from Franklin Public Radio. I understand that part of the transfer of the assets, so the ownership changes. That's this year. The other owner was still in and then goes away because they're no longer around. Haven't we just kind of overstated our overall assessed value? Because really, it just moved from one name to the other. One year, it's counted as new growth. Next year, it's going to be in there, but it was there before. We've just added 15 more to the 15. I'm not sure I follow that math, so I would appreciate a clarification on that. Yeah.
So this is different from real estate. I was telling you, somebody has the wood deck, it's decayed, they replace it, they still have a 12 by 12 wood deck. The new one is the same size.
Right.
Now, they don't allow that. We've, Department of Revenue has specific guidelines. They seem quite different for personal property.
Okay.
We don't usually talk about that because it might go away. I don't know, hopefully they're not listening right now, but
I think
it's been a puzzle even to RSC, the vendor. Like, but that's what they say, that's what it is.
Understand, but I mean, to Council Morrongiello's point, it is a large piece of what makes up the new growth of that $88 million. It is a large piece of that number, and certainly want to make sure that. I'm not saying you just made another comment that just freaked me out. We may lose that. I'm not going to go into that tonight.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that that's maximize. That's what this
Right.
whole thing is about, is how do we maximize
Right. Yeah.
new growth. So I'm not gonna beat that up anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually, sorry, I have a similar question.
I mean, this is just, I have this absurd question. So let's say, you remember the espresso machine? Let's say it's a $1 trillion platinum espresso machine worth $1 trillion, and the owner of it and another owner was in cahoots with the town. And they say, and they sell it back and forth every year. Will that increase the new growth by $1 trillion every year?
It depends on the transaction.
I think with all due respect, I think you gotta give a practical example. Let's get rid of the espresso machine. Let's get rid of everybody in cahoots. Let's get rid of the rating system. Let's just come down to a realistic scenario.
Which was what happened last night, the liquor store.
To some degree, it was a realistic example, except those happen to be brothers, right? So there's like a little bit of a quagmire there on a couple of those. But what I'm trying to get out is that stuff in, like, you know, Planet Jeep across the street sells to Volvo, right? That's a more likely scenario than what we're talking here with $1 trillion espresso machines, and even last night with the confusion of what brother was selling to what. If Planet Jeep over here sells to Volvo, what happens? Is it a monetary wash, or is there a value that goes up because it's Volvo? Or name your.
It's a new account. It's a new account.
But
To save us all some time.
Yeah.
We understand the question.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get back.
okay.
Right, perfect, thank you. As it relates to new growth in a commercial business coming online, you talked about the two methods that are valued, that are used to value it. For, let's say, a warehouse space comes online, it's not even a care when it comes online. Is the value of that, if it's empty versus full, on day one, affect your valuation of that building?
No. There's a vacancy and collection allowance that's applied throughout. We stratify the various types of commercial and industrial property. So perhaps office is getting a little bit more of an allowance than warehouse, of course, right, at this time in this climate. So the whole stratified group gets an allowance annually, even if they're 100% occupied. They get an allowance because over a 10-year period, they may have some vacancy. So they kind of get it along the way. They get an allowance in the math.
So where I'm going with it is, if I have, to Chris's point, if I have a 200,000 square foot warehouse here that's fully rented, that's valued at $45 million, and it's 100% occupied, and I have the same exact building 2 miles down the street that just opened up and it's got no one in it, that's going to be valued at $45 million.
Yeah. Right. If there was something physically that was keeping a property from being occupied, we've had some older properties that are being renovated. They're not really available yet to go online and be rented. So therefore, we typically would be using probably a cost approach, and there might be adjustments in that because of the need to bring the standards up in that particular property.
And the reason why I asked that question is, obviously, if it's empty, which new warehouse is going to come online, or commercial property is going to come online, that's where, obviously, the more that you can maximize that new growth number helps in the big picture. Meaning, if I started out at 10 and then it's new growth this year at 10, and next year it's full, it becomes 45.
No.
We just lost an opportunity of $35 million of new growth.
No, you're right.
So that's why I'm asking the question.
Right. Exactly.
Because my next question was going to go into on the residential side, kind of tying into what Councilor Malloy said, and I'm going to use my house as the example, literally the example. So I moved into my new home in May of 2023. It hit the new development, the new growth number for the year. My house was assessed, was given a $900,000 assessment. I put in a permit for a pool, $40,000 assessed on the permit. In 2025, you all came out, that's how I know, you came out. You did your walk around, saw the pool, da-da-da. My overall property value went up $100,000, predominantly probably because of the pool. But the actual only new growth number was 14. Did we just lose I admitted it was going to cost $44,000 on the building permit.
Yeah.
How does the new growth number only come in at 14 when I just admitted it cost me more than 44? But,
Yeah.
how did it not come in at, you want to give me 100, make the whole 100 new growth? Again, why did we not maximize the new growth number out of that?
It's that whole thing where you didn't have a percent complete on that. It was 100% complete. The contributory value may not be the same as the actual cost value. What did that having that pool add to the resale value of your home?
So in that case, even though my house went up in value of $100,000, you or when I say you, it's the formula said it's only worth $14,000.
No, it's not the formula. We watch this stuff, and people, do things for their own benefit and enjoyment. They figure they're going to be there a few years. It's not necessarily going to add that much value to the property. Even a kitchen renovation, $90,000 is not going to necessarily add. It's probably going to add a third of that to the resale value of the property. It's just doesn't bear out. Let
me ask you this: if I am does the DOR allow the methodology to say, if I said it was a $40,000 renovation, therefore the new growth is $40,000?
No,
Does not.
does not.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
You can't confuse market value with cost. I've done appraisals for $10 million.
Yes.
And I've had the guy go, I put a copper roof on my garage. That cost me $200,000. I go, that's great. Do you like it? I love it. Great. It's worth no more than an asphalt roof to the market. So even if you went, well, I spent $200,000, it doesn't mean it's worth $200,000. And a lot of people, I'm also a real estate broker. A lot of times people buy the home, they'll fill in the pool. That happened at my house. So that's where it's not always hard science, because you're dealing with people. And they're going to tell you, the market will tell you what something's worth, whether you like it or not.
Correct.
So that would be my only caution, is not to confuse what the market value is at something and what it costs.
Correct.
And I understand your motivation. You're trying to get more money for the town. Towns always need more money. But, and I don't know if you have an engineering background, a couple of you sound like it with the formula stuff, but it's not all just a straight linear line.
Yeah.
And you're never going to find a house that's exactly like someone else's house, because everybody has their own taste. So that's all I wanted to say, which is really that. I went on a little too long. So.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it has no impact on the market, but where I'm going with it is if from an assessment standpoint, in 1 year, the assessed value of the property has gone up $100,000.
Right.
Of which I've added a $40,000 addition, a physical $40,000 addition.
Right.
Whether or not I get that $100,000 that you all assess me at, just mechanically, I go, well, that 40 of it is because of a new growth item, and 100 of it is just the general growth in assessed value.
You would think that.
That to me makes the most logical sense, and it's not a formula that says it's only worth $14,000. That makes zero sense to me. And
The Department of Revenue mandates that we capture new growth exclusive of interim adjustments. And in an accelerating real estate market, you have to, by law, extract the market adjustments, and we've been on an increase from the new improvement. You can't lump it all in one thing. You can't say, oh, it went up $100,000, that's because of the new pool. It's the market adjustment and the improvement, and only the improvement exclusive of that market adjustment can be reported as new growth as per the Department of Revenue guidelines. And we're restricted by those laws.
And really quickly, they can maybe talk about comps, right? Because they do comps in neighborhoods, similar style houses, commercial. So the comps in the market help drive some of those numbers in terms of where the market value is. It's just like a car. You buy a brand new car, you drive it on the street, the value then plummets 5% right out of the gate by the time you get to King Street. Think of solar assessments. When the solar farm comes online, over on Maplegate, all of that equipment and the metal and the gear and the glass, when it goes online, it'll be at its highest value. But what they do is kind of smooth it out, because in year 2 of that solar farm, the value of that personal property is going to go down. The year after that, it's going to go down. And in 10 years or 15 years, it's going to plummet a lot. So even though you may get a bump in your thought of, I put $100,000 into a copper roof and a brand new pool, and those are really, really expensive quality ways to improve a house. You also have to remember that roof or that pool or that brand new whatever is then going to decline in value after it's used for 20 years or 30 years. And I think, I can't explain it better than that, but I think there is this weird art to assessing. Because even if you did what you're saying, Councilor LeBlanc, and you charge that assessed value at $100,000 right when they do it, or Councilor Malloy's house with his bathroom renovation, if it costs $40,000, and you say, well, it's worth $40,000 more. Okay, well now my house is X and now it's Y value, why don't we tax it at that? Well, then the assessors are going to go out in 10 years or whatever, and then your property will then decline off because maybe the market or the bathroom, the valuation of those materials isn't as high. I hope that makes like a little bit of sense. It may not be what we want to hear, but I think somewhere in their methodology, assessors smooth that out based on the market comps of, say, Redgate Lane or Prospect Street or whatever. Is that like, is that somewhat accurate for the assessors, or am I,
Yes.
am I way off here?
You know, there's something we have to do, you know, they do it in the classes when they're starting to introduce people to all this. It's called match pairs. So you're looking for the contributory value of certain things. So they're all two-story colonials. Now this one's got an attached two-car garage. This one's got, you know, some, you know, other amenity, and they give you the sale prices, and you have to show, you know, what, you know, that this is why they're different, and this is the amount of contribution that two-car garage made. You know, it might have cost $40,000 for it. It's only going to add 20 to the value of that property, because we have sales that show that the ones with it are selling $20,000 more than the ones without it. It's like, I mean, they're probably higher numbers right now, but everything's gone up so much. But just an illustration.
Yeah, I guess and maybe this is a takeaway. Sit down with the Department of Revenue. To me, this is an opportunity where we are pigeonholed into 2.5%. The more that technically can be added to new growth allows us to get beyond that 2.5%, but still stay within the parameters of what you assess a property at. So to my point, if you're gonna increase my value by 100,000, but I spend 40,000, it's not 14,000 new growth and 86,000 of just general tax levy growth. It's 40,000 of new growth and 60, and it changes the formula dramatically.
Yeah, but
It means I'm going to pay more. It means the whole town is going to pay more because there's a bigger increase in the tax rate because of the new growth, but it drives the actual. Those two things can work in unison with each other. So you give me what I needed out of it. So,
well, what we have to go back to the beginning, Proposition 2.5, and they made a provision
Let's
for.
not.
yeah.
They made a provision for new growth, and it's so say there wasn't any growth, you're going to get your 2.5%. The only reason they're giving you the growth is to say, well, it's community development is going to develop over time, and in 10 years it's going to be twice the size. They're only going to give you the money and the capacity to support the new properties that are coming on. And if they give you more than that, then you're gonna be raising taxes outside of the guidelines of Proposition 2.5. You're artificially inflating. If you got growth certified that was outside of what actually happened in the community, then you're going to be loading up everybody else with additional burden beyond 2.5 that you can't legitimize.
So I had a question. You know, we have policies that we can use to stimulate real estate growth.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any policies we as a town can implement to stimulate personal property growth? Like, you know, I don't think we have the money for this, but we had like interest-free loans for personal property, and then we could tax them on it. You know, that'd be kind of cool. is there any policy levers that we have that could encourage businesses to purchase more? And I guess that's for Jamie, I guess. I don't really know.
At the local level, as always, we're usually handcuffed completely by Prop 2.5. We're the wrong entity to ask that question. That's a federal government action, and they've probably done things like that before. I don't know whether the state government can do that. I'm sure they can to some degree, but at the local level, I mean, I will admit, when Kevin brings it back to the start of Prop 2.5, I mean, ultimately, Prop 2.5 is still the baseline law that's regulating almost all of this. So until Prop 2.5, which, as you know, they produced a report last year on Prop 2.5 and the need to essentially kind of revise and look at the entire statute, because Kevin is right. Even in the scenario of the commercial business, if you get a $10 million sale over what the appraisal is and the market says that building's worth it, and you jack up these numbers hugely, you end up throwing the Prop 2.5 methodology completely out of whack. I don't think cities and towns have, just to my knowledge, and I'll double check with Attorney Sorrell, I think we are very limited in doing interest-free loans, techniques like that. Typically, zoning is probably something that's more in your wheelhouse at the local level to try to incentivize some sort of growth in certain neighborhoods or
For not for personal property, but for real estate.
Yeah,
Right.
you want to grow that base.
But I
I mean, interest rates going down would have, there's a lot of other things that are just factors in this entire equation that are, obviously way out of the local government's control.
I don't think it's been thought. I mean, maybe we should just stew on it and just think maybe there's something we haven't thought of, in terms of. If there's something we could do even marginally to improve to sort of. I mean, it's sort of an economic development thing in general, but people are probably doing some sort of activity already, but it's probably not towards that personal property. So I don't know, just a thought.
Well, the things that are in our control are how we react to development, right? And the framework we create for development, growth. So I think some of it's, just educating the public and recognizing that you can't really stop it, you can contain it. But I think zoning is probably one of the two things. I mean, I'll ask Attorney Sorrell about some of these ideas of low interest loans, but I don't think there's really a lot.
I'm talking about specifically for personal property, not for real estate. Yeah, okay, cool.
Right, my last question is, part of the reason for doing this was, and you did mention it, Kevin, that it's kind of hard to project, but to be honest with you, we have to be in the business of projecting because we have to kind of forecast out what our revenue is going to be to determine what we can spend. And where I'm going with that is, other than maybe a few anomalies, looking at the information you sent for 24 through 26, other than, quite frankly, the apartment complex across the street, that's really the only kind of anomaly that I see in new growth. What I mean by that is nothing large appears in the numbers. There's no big projects that are in those numbers.
Right.
So there are some big projects that are in the pipeline that will affect new growth.
Right.
So if we historically have been doing $88 million of new growth, which has produced $900,000 a year in tax revenue, and this is me speaking, it's not the assessors. When Grove Street comes online and it's 330 units, and I looked at what the 3 large apartment complexes are valued at with the amount of units, that property value will come in over $100 million. Should come in at over $100 million. That $100 million is on top of the regular stuff that's coming in. So that will be a bump in our taxes. I mean, in theory, $110 million will produce about $1 million in taxes.
Yeah, I think.
Correct? Am I right with that calculation, Jim?
Should be
The rough math
Probably.
figure.
Surely more.
It should be more, correct.
But remember, some of these projects take, like Dean Avenue took like, I think, 3 years.
Correct.
Before it was 100%.
Correct.
So we pick it up,
Correct.
the increments every
Right,
year.
but that's my point. What we as a council need to know is kind of,
Depends on what.
and what you know historically, like that project of that size, use Dean Ave, use Halsted, even use Joe's, we got a third of it in 2027, we got a third of it in 2028, but that is $1 million more
Yeah.
that is literally can be built in. So that, I can say right now, there's $1 million that is coming. Now, yes, there's expenses coming with that. There are 330 apartments and stuff coming with that, but it's $1 million of revenue in a forecast.
Tax base. Yep.
And it's that in it, and I'm just gonna, again, I'm saying this, if we were looking for $1 million override, I know that there's $1 million coming in 3 years. So how do we get to the 3 years? Because I got $1 million coming, that will be there every single year ad infinitum. So my point being is, I would like, and again, it's a swag number, it's a guess, but projects like Grove Street and projects potentially 440 East Central, the solar farm, the warehouse that's being built, any of the large projects where the shovels are in the ground or we know what they're gonna be, it would be really nice to know on the back of a napkin what the potential is gonna look like.
Yeah.
Because if you add all that up, 110 million there, 90 million there, da-da-da, all of a sudden, it turns into $3 million of additional new growth that is above and beyond, because again, I didn't see anything other than across the street as an anomaly in the numbers. Everything appears to be, there's personal property.
During this 3-year period, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see Dell buying this $12 million worth of stuff every year. It's like clockwork. They're buying $12 million worth of stuff, at least over the 3 years you sent to us. So my point being is, it seems that we have a kind of a steady flow of $80 million, but we got a pop. I gotta know what that pop is, because when the subcommittee that does the budget, that needs to be factored in.
Right. One qualifier.
Oh, you're gonna throw a qualifier.
Nope, just, so, to the point about the rough math, you're in the ballpark on your back of napkin math, right? The issue is that when new growth comes in for a year and it's at $1 million, essentially in the new fiscal year, you start all over again. So even if you were to have the 330 apartments on Grove Street, say 100 of those came online right away. You can capture that after January 1st in new growth, but then it goes into the tax base. But then you start over new growth from zero the next year. And this is, I think, the fundamental issue with new growth over the last 6 years. We were at 1.8 million in 2020, and now we're at 800,000. And part of the reason for that is a lot of projects getting delayed, interest rates, a whole bunch of things out of our control. But new growth in the budget is assumed at a flatline number, but that number has to regenerate itself every single year. So it's not as quick and easy on the back of napkin math. You know, I know Emil's here about Depot Plaza is probably the best example, where the valuation of that property is X amount of dollars now. We'll go through the system, 1 year will get captured on new growth. It'll then, you're correct, go into the tax base. So theoretically, that tax base should be equaling up. But then that new growth number, which is still part of your tax levy, goes back to zero. So if you don't have a Depot Plaza or a 444 or something else basically every year filling that new growth coffers, that's where new growth has suffered $1 million loss in the overall tax base budget, right? So the back of napkin math is accurate. Also, we know projects get hung up. Projects get hung up in court. They get hung up on appeal. They get hung up on, financial issues. Sometimes the banks, whatever. There's a million other factors. Those things get delayed out. So I would just caution that the back of napkin math is not going to be a solution necessarily for the immediate problem of the budget. That's something that probably is going to drag out for a long time. And in that time frame, you're correct. Costs are, right, inflation, for example, with supply is just going to keep going up at a rate possibly higher, likely higher than what the property is going to continue to grow at. And I think that's where you see the new growth problem of why it just has dried up over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to kind of project it. To your point, things can slow down, but there are shovels in the ground
Yes, there are.
happening right now, other than one that's.
And I'm happy to go to the staff and say, okay, we've got 12 projects, whatever it is. I'm happy to go look at those current appraised values, and I'm happy to look at, like, what are those ones that are like already permitted and ready to go?
Right.
And if those were to come online, say within 2 years, what is the tax-based valuation that we're going to get for that, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's an important piece that we can try to help educate the Joint Budget Subcommittee. Right. Okay, this is what we've got coming up, and maybe that might give them some comfort around the budget situation.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
to be extreme, just let's assume that all of it came online at the same time.
Yeah.
And let's just say it's 300, I always say this, we need $350 million worth of new growth above what we do right now. $350 million worth of new growth will generate $3.5 to $4 million of additional taxes every single year from that point on forward. So you come back with a number that takes those 12 projects, and that is, for in simple terms, it closes the budget gap. Again, it's out, but it's part of the formula to the budget gap.
Correct. So
that was also the point of this was I do think we do need to do some forecasting around that with some of the data that you already have back of that little link on the back of a piece of paper like I did tonight around the Grove Street property and whatnot. Again, I thank you for the time. I thank the staff and the board, the commission, the board for being here as well. This was, I mean, informative for me, especially around personal property. I'm gonna see if Councilman, you have any further questions or?
No, other than to say thanks. I'm sure there'll be some follow-up questions as I kind of digest some of this and talk about overall residential real estate assessments. I know they're very hard to predict or whatever, but I'm kind of interested to think, the way that's headed as well, to your point about new growth. So no, this is very helpful. I appreciate the time.
I just wanted to thank you as well for coming today, and I know, we're all volunteers, a good number of us are volunteers on the Board of Assessors, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you for your time, because I know it can be thankless sometimes, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, before we wrap up tonight, I actually this actually was a good segue, since we're talking about new growth and whatnot. I did want to afford, a couple of nights ago, the Depot Plaza came up for downtown. The owner of the property is here, and I was hoping if you could come up to the microphone for a few minutes and just give a little bit of an overview of what you're trying to do downtown with the Depot Plaza, if you wouldn't mind.
Here or there?
Right to that microphone right there would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have to excuse myself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
What's the protocol on introduction?
Just introduce yourself and where you live.
Okay, Emil Muhana, I live in San Francisco.
Okay.
I'm summering out here with my parents who live in Westwood. Shout out Westwood. We've owned the property since 1998. It was the first real estate transaction my dad took to not make sandwiches for a living as an immigrant. So it was a pretty important piece of property for us, because then I also didn't have to make sandwiches for a living. My dad then acquired the adjacent lot, the adjacent building, so it's technically two buildings. I think that's something we got to work out to make it one, but I think it was Andy Basante, God rest his soul, was working with my dad quite some time ago about the MBTA, and it turned into, would you develop the site? And then as time went on, we discovered we had to try and self-contain the project because everything else was just causing too many delays. We lost sight of what we could accomplish, and I said, hey, let's pull it back and accomplish what we can at site. So when I saw the MBTA Communities Act and I saw the commercial parking requirement removed and the 1.5 to 1 ratio of units to parking was reduced to 1 to 1, I said, okay, Dad, it looks like there's enough here that says to us we could develop a property there, and I think the economics work out to 4 stories. And we can still hit the 10% affordability requirement that they're asking for. We're asking for 4 stories, it's 3 by right, we're not asking for 5, but also on parking, we're looking at an 80 to 84% ratio, depending if you're nicking me on snow removal or not. But we're able to get to an 84% ratio, taking advantage of legislation that's been passed to accelerate development. And I look at it as a great opportunity for the town of Franklin. We are intending to have some studio units, especially considering there's Dean College there. We'd love to offer, some students the potential. But we also think that there's a capital A in affordability and a lowercase a in affordability. I'm sure I'm saying a cliche, but to offer somebody the ability to commute from a brand new construction in Franklin Metro West to their job using the commuter rail is a unique opportunity to take advantage of all of those. Now, any deal you work on, there's levers. You pull on one goes up, pull on another one goes up. So we've opened up to public comment for some commentary about the facade, aesthetically and cosmetically. I think on record I'll say we will take everything into consideration. Structural creates a lot of complexity. But from the assessment that we looked at, commercial was a challenge. That property has been commercial for a really long time. And we looked into the history of the property with the first architect I worked with and discovered, it was kind of set up almost like with alleys, and it had a different feel. We had the conversation of, hey, could you turn the building, do something different? There just isn't enough space. So what we came up with is the highest and best use economically that we can do, but it does reduce the commercial square footage. The goal there is we can't jam more cars into that part of town. Sure, there might be parking lots, but in my estimation, it may be better for the town of Franklin to not jam as much in. Now, does that change the profile of the tenants that may take commercial properties? Absolutely. Does that spur development across the street or vacancies to be filled across the street that I see? Absolutely. So what we're hoping for with this project is to have it be more of the tree kind of trunk instead of a branch of everything else. We understand its significance downtown. We didn't underestimate the responses we would receive. And I'm here to help answer any questions. As far as parking goes, Jamie knows how much I asked about options. We landed on either doing a podium, which I don't think would look good downtown, if we did the full thing. And plus we have the commercial requirement. We looked at below grade, and below grade was not economically sustainable in any way, shape, or form. So right now what we're hoping for is the eye of the needle that we have threaded with legislation that's empowered the town and the state and us, and with the momentum that we could add 57 residential units downtown as major victories with a really brand new, maybe a little bit more purpose-built commercial space that could activate downtown differently than it is today.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you'll excuse us and
Say that again?
move on.
Say that again, Kevin?
Any questions?
I'm sorry.
You want to go home?
Yeah.
We may.
Yeah, with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Okay.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now producing this in collaboration with Franklin TV and Franklin Public Radio. This podcast is my public service effort for Franklin, but we can't do it alone. We can always use your help. How can you help? If you can use the information that you find here, please tell your friends and neighbors. If you don't like something here, please let me know. Through this feedback loop, we can continue to make improvements. and I thank you for listening. For additional information, please visit franklinmatters.org. If you have questions or comments, you can reach me directly at suresteve@gmail.com. The music for the intro and exit was provided by Michael Clark and the group East of Shirley. The piece is titled Ernesto Mañana, copyright Michael Clark and Tintype Tunes in 2008, and used with their permission. I hope you enjoy. By the way, you can also subscribe and listen to Franklin Matters Radio on your favorite podcast app. Search in podcasts for Franklin Matters.